Welcome to the preview video of my race day of the Valencia Marathon training block. So this is not the video I expected to be bringing you on race week of the Valencia Marathon. So to cut a long story short, I'm here at a travel lodge just outside of Chichester on Saturday night before the Valencia Marathon. And how I've got into this situation is simply because of misplacing my passport and not being able to find it earlier this week. So big error there on my part, and it's meant that I'm not be able to run the Valencia Marathon as planned. So I realised on about Wednesday that I looked all around my house and couldn't find it, and the realisation has set in that we're flying early Friday morning, that if I couldn't get a replacement passport in this time, I wasn't going to be able to go. So it was a case of a couple of days just trying to search everywhere, trying to remember everywhere where I didn't have this, where I had my passport last, and unfortunately just couldn't find it. So it's thrown a bit of a spanner in the works for this week, and rather than just be sort of gutted and moping around all weekend, I've decided that having done all the training of the block so far, having tapered for a couple of weeks as well, which sort of impacts my fitness and my training, and having that race to look forward to, I've decided to go and get an alternative race this weekend on the Sunday. So I looked on the race calendar, and friends had suggested that the only race really that was going on marathon wise, which obviously I wanted to do a marathon with training for that, was the Goodwood's racecourse by run through. So we've got distances all the way up from 5k, 10k half marathon, 20 miler to a marathon, and an ultra, a 50k as well. So not quite sure of the setup, but it looks like it's going to be 5k laps of a race course. Thankfully it's really flat. Might have issues with the wind. It's given strong winds tomorrow, so might have a little bit of difficulty there, but the main thing is that it's really flat. The wind will be behind me at some points, it will be in my face at some points, and I imagine it's quite exposed on a course like that. So some things that might go in my favour was that Valencia Marathon is looking very hot, and sort of 18 degrees was the main weather point of what it's going to be throughout the marathon. And for me, I find that I struggle in anything over 10 degrees really. I like it nice and cold to run in. So the weather forecast for tomorrow is giving highs of 14, which is going to be more like 10 degrees in the morning. So it's really going to probably play in my favour, and I might even have better conditions today than I would have done at Valencia. So I'll talk a bit about the nutrition that I've done firstly, leading up to the race, what I've been eating today and carb loading, and then what I'm going to be taking on through the race. So in terms of the carb load today and what I've been taking, it's mainly been pasta. I've had 3 smaller portions of pasta spread out throughout the day. Just plain pasta with a little bit of cheese on for a bit of flavour. Didn't want too much cheese or sauce or anything like that that's going to upset my stomach going into race day. So plenty of carbs there, and my evening meal tonight, I've got a bit of chicken with it too. So that's the carb load for Saturday. I've got a couple of porridge pots for the morning, that I'll probably take 1.5 of these, but I'm going to have one when I wake up at the hotel. Then I'm going to take one with me in the car to have a bit on the way. And in terms of in-race nutrition, I think this is probably the most organised and the most sort of ambitious I've been with taking on as much carbs as I can. So typically in a marathon, I would take on 4 lots of 40-gram OTE gels, but mostly when I look back to after I finish a marathon, I've probably only took 3 of these. So I'm probably running underfueled in the marathon, and it can cause me to have issues with not being fueled and fading sort of in the last half of that marathon with not having enough fuel, because 120 grams over the 3 hours is roughly only about 40 grams of carbs per hour, which the recommendation when you look at all the science is to have as much carbs as possible. You're talking sort of upwards of 100 grams of carbs per hour, but obviously your limiting factor is if you can stomach this, and if you've trained your stomach to take this on and to while you're running, so that you're not causing any GI issues. And this is something I've really worked on in my long runs, I've worked on it in my long runs and sessions where I'm running at close to marathon pace. I've been practicing taking on those gels to see how my stomach can handle it. So I've managed to take on up to around 100 grams an hour of the OTE and precision hydration gels. So going into the race, I've got 4 lots of the 40 gram OTE gels, which is what I typically take, but I've got an extra 90 grams of the precision fuel pouch too. So a total of 250 grams of carbs there. So spread out over the 3 hours, you're looking at around 80 to 85 grams per hour if I'm going for that sub-3 goal. And that's probably double what I've been taking on in the past. And I think that's going to give me a really good chance of keeping my energy levels topped up so that I can keep that consistent pace throughout. And the other important thing of race day is the pacing strategy. So I'm in the double figures now for marathons completed. I've done some wildly different pacing strategies, ranging from going out too quick on probably my earlier marathons. I've gone out conservatively and tried to build through in some marathons where I probably lost my confidence a bit from going out too quick and fading towards the end. But I've wanted to conserve myself and feel strong for that last half. And I feel like the last 2 marathons I did sort of about 12 months ago. We're looking at Yorkshire Marathon in 2024 and the Valencia Marathon this time last year. I feel like I got the pacing strategy not too far off, but I probably just wasn't in the right fitness. I hadn't done enough long runs and my training hadn't been consistent. So this time out, I'm going to be really tuned in to how fit I am, and I've got some really good indicators there of training sessions I've done, of races I've done in and around that marathon pace. So I know that I've done 4 lots of 20-mile runs plus in the build up, so I've really got that endurance there and the experience over the 20-mile distance that's going to land me in good stead going into the marathon. I've also done some key races / workouts as well. So I've done Worksop half marathon in just over 1:27, and Worksop, with the terrain being quite hilly, is really a good indicator that if I can run 1:27 for a hilly half marathon, that's probably going to work out around a 1:25, I'd say, for me on the flat, because I get impacted a lot by the hills. I'm not very good at running up hills. I'm very good at running down hills, but I do find that it takes a lot of my energy to run up the hills and I lose a lot of time on them. So I feel that if I can go through halfway in probably a 1:28, 1:29 and it feel really quite comfortable at that pace, then I'll have enough to hold on in the second half of the marathon. I've also done a 10 mile at Derby 10 mile at around 6:35 per mile pace. So this is around 15 seconds per mile faster than what I want to run the marathon at. So it's a good indicator that I can run a little bit quicker than that marathon pace, but I've obviously got to keep that marathon pace up for the full 26 miles. And another confidence boosting session I've done is a 20-mile run that I did 4 or 5 weeks out from the marathon. It was probably the best session I've done of a block. That I did 10 lots of 1 mile on and 1 mile off. And on the 1 mile efforts, I was making sure that I was running these at slightly faster than marathon pace. So I was somewhere in the 6:45 to 6:50 region for all of the reps on these. So I've done 10 miles at marathon pace within a 20-mile long run. So I've kept that endurance up for around 2.5 hours within the run. And I've hit a really good below marathon pace for the 10 miles and then jogged the recoveries of the miles within there. So those sessions, those races, that mileage has really given me the confidence to go out there and think that I'm going to aim to go through halfway in around 1:28. And why I say this is because I want that little bit of room, a little bit of margin for error, firstly on my GPS, that it won't be quite correct. I know that my watch is a bit over optimistic, and when I do the marathon distance, it's probably going to record about 26.5 miles on my watch. So I will line it up with where the mile markers are, and I'm usually sort of, say I get to 10 miles, it's probably going to be another 10-20 seconds before I get to the actual mile marker on the course. So I'm giving myself that little bit of leeway that I am going to be under I don't want to pace it at exactly going through 1:30 because I know that I'll have to then kick down in the second half and I'll be too tight to that sub-3 goal. So with that being said, I'm obviously a little bit gutted not to be out in the running mecca that is Valencia, where I've paid to be, where I should be really, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the event. It was a great event last year and absolutely loved it. But I think this experience has probably led me to be sort of staying closer to home for the races that I do and trying to do some new events in this country really. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to put all this training to good use, to get out there at Goodwood and give it my best shot. Got my new race shoes to give a go that I've used on the treadmill this week in my last session. So it's nice to get in a fresh pair of the Adidas Pro 4s. And I'm looking forward to being on that start line and giving it my best shot, going to try and get the first sub-3 that I've got within about 2 years now. So it would be good to be back under that sub-3 mark again and give me some good confidence going into 2026. So thank you for watching the Valencia Marathon, or not the Valencia Marathon as it is the Goodwood Marathon now, preview, and stay tuned for the race day video to see how I got on.